Back to the Think Bigger Real Estate Show. I am your host, Justin Stoddard. I'm here during uncertain times to give you some certainty. I have with me a very good friend who's going to talk about what you should be saying as a real estate agent right now. Let me just begin before I introduce this amazing friend and gentleman. Let me describe to you something very important about the purpose why I do this show. And it's really, even especially in uncertain times, is to help you recognize your own potential, to wake you up to that potential, and then to inspire you and help you to live in pursuit of that potential. That is my mission. That's why this show exists. And I'm thrilled to have with me today someone who's not only a friend, but someone who's a very trusted mortgage advisor in this industry, David Chandler. David, you've been in the business for 15 years. You've owned businesses, you've been a business consultant, you've owned marketing companies, you understand business as good as any. Thank you so much for coming on the show today to share your wisdom.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, man. And it's, I appreciate you. I don't watch the show every single time you're doing it, but I think every guest should give a shout out and a pat on the back to you for what you're doing in our industry. For realtors, for title companies, for mortgage lenders. You are a valued voice in the Portland market for sure. And I think soon to be probably nationally. So anyway, I appreciate you, my friend.
Yeah, you bet. I appreciate that as well. All right, let's get into this. First of all, right now, there's plenty of news telling us what's not going well, right? You can turn on the TV any time of day and we hear more illnesses, we see more economic halts, we hear more deaths. Like, we're not going to talk about that today, because the reality is, like, billions of people right now, billions are not infected with COVID. Like, most people are going about their life probably actually having a better quality of life than maybe they've had in a long time, right? So there's tons going well, and I'm a firm believer, as I know you are as well, that what you focus on expands. And if you look around at all the opportunities, if you look around about everything that's going well, you'll start to realize, hey, the sky's not falling. Yes, we need to adapt. Yes, there's some people going through some hard times. However, a lot of that is because people are buying into the media and causing this herd-like frenzy. Yes, we need to take precautions. Yes. And yes, we need to be safe. And yes, we need to pray for those that are suffering. But I'm a firm believer that a lot of the suffering that's going on is unnecessary. Would you agree with that?
I think unnecessary, necessary. I think it really comes down to a matter of perspective. And do we appreciate the fact that we still live in the greatest country on earth? Do we appreciate that the inconveniences that have been thrust upon us to a certain extent, not of our own doing, still present us with some opportunities, whether it's time to reconnect with family, whether it's time to get some yard work done, be out in nature. It really just comes down to, again, like you said, what you focus on is what expands. We didn't ask for this, but can we find things to take out of it that we can appreciate and learn from and grow from? I know that in our industry, I can tell you that this will force innovation. It will force change. There were already, I think at the end of this quarter, Finance of America, we were going to push the button on e-signing for everything except the things that have to be wet signed. So that when you come into closing, the majority of everything's already been signed, with the exception of the things that probably have to be recorded with the county and a few other things. So will this industry or business interruption accelerate those things? Will that force realtors to look at innovation and technology, doing Facebook Live videos or video presentations, or things that maybe people have resisted that now go, you know what, I think that's going to have to be a part of my business moving forward. And the thing I was afraid of doing now is not as intimidating as it was maybe a month ago. So I think if we look at this as an opportunity to grow and expand and push ourselves out of our comfort zones, even though we're probably all sitting at home in our pajamas right now, it's a good opportunity.
Yeah, it's great stuff, man. It's a great perspective. So let's talk about right now when it comes to the real estate industry. Let's start off by, before we get into, and I know this is why a lot of people are tuning in, is to hear like what you should be saying to buyers, what you should be saying to sellers. Before we go there, I want you to talk to us a little bit about what's going well right now. I know we've talked about rates, everything from verification of employment to appraisals. Talk to us a little bit about kind of what you're seeing out there that's actually going really well.
Well, let me talk to you again. I'm going to cover touch on the bad stuff and get to the good stuff really quickly. So obviously this month has been a huge disruption. And a month ago, you couldn't open up Facebook without seeing a realtor or a mortgage lender just screaming about, now's the time to buy, the rates are the best that they've ever been. And all that was was really true. And then what you saw is lenders who were just, we don't have the capacity. In America, there's $11 trillion worth of mortgages. Any given year, about 2 trillion of those, the industry does about $2 trillion in mortgages, about $1 million in purchase, $1 million in refi. Month of February, there was about $2 trillion in applications. You're trying to shove a year's worth of business into a month. And so you saw rates go up and people thought, oh, it's a capacity issue. And then 2 weeks ago, the stock market kind of craters. And that forced people who had bought stocks, institutional investors, not individuals like you and I, that when the stock market craters, all these institutional investors who had bought stock on margin, meaning they've borrowed half the money to buy the stock, have to meet a margin call, which means they have to raise capital. So they dump all these mortgage-backed securities onto the market to raise cash to pay their margin call, because they don't want to sell the stock at not a 50% loss, a 75% loss if they bought it on margin. So now all of a sudden there's excess supply and not enough demand, and rates go way up. And so this thing that we experienced a couple of weeks before, now it doesn't exist. Well, the Fed comes in a week ago and says, hey, we're going to backstop this, and we're going to, or the stimulus package, but for a stimulus package to work, you have to raise money. Well, how do you raise money? You have to sell treasury bills and mortgage-backed securities. And now all of a sudden there's more excess supply. The market didn't react well. Interest rates last week were the most volatile I've ever seen it in 15 years. I mean, day swings of 100 to 200 basis points. So that brings us to today. So this is a 2-week period of time. And on Sunday, so here's the good. The Fed comes out and says kind of unlimited QE, quantitative easing. And basically says, we're just going to not be a seller of mortgage-backed securities now. We're going to buy them. And so instead of selling them and letting them come off of our balance sheet, the ones that we've bought in the past, we're going to keep them, and we're going to keep buying. And so mortgage rates yesterday and even this morning were up pretty significantly, have gotten really, really good again. Not to where they were maybe a month ago, because again, I think lenders are holding on to some pricing, holding on to some where they probably could lower their rate a bit based on what the real rate is, but they're still trying to shove all that business from February through the pipeline. I think once they get through that pipeline, we're going to see rates come down here in the next week, 2 weeks, even more than they have. But just so you know, we're back down in the mid threes again. I think we're going to hit the low threes for sure. So that's the good. And that's good news for your buyers if you're a realtor, because when rates jumped up to 4 a couple of weeks ago or last week, buyers were like tapping the brakes and going, wait a second, no. I got pre-approved or pre-qualified at 3.25, 3.5. I'm not even approved now at 4.5 or 4.25. Much less do I really want to buy something, even if I am approved. I think I'll just wait. Okay. So I would tell your buyers, hey, now is the time to get off the sideline and look. So that's, some good that the Fed has jumped in and given a lot of confidence to investors that we're going to buy mortgage-backed securities. Rates are down, and I think rates are going to continue to go down. The other thing, Fannie came out yesterday with their lender letter, and they do a lender letter, periodically. And this lender letter basically said, hey, we kind of get it. We understand that if everybody's working from home, you can't do a verbal verification of employment. Right. Verbal verification, like nobody's sitting in there's nobody answering the phone at these offices. So they said, hey, you know what, we'll take a written VOE. So as long as it's coming from a work email address, we're good with that. And so that's a huge deal. I think a bigger deal in this particular, as it relates to, um, appraisals, is right now Fannie has said, hey, you know what? In this period of time, you can do a desktop appraisal. And what all that means is that the appraiser doesn't have to walk through the house. The appraiser doesn't have to go in. He can use public record, MLS data, verify this information through third parties, basically take photographs. So what I would, we've all been on Redfin and seen that picture and went, man, that house looks gorgeous, or those rooms look huge. And you show up and it's like, and that's a really tiny room. That was a really good that's a great photographer. So I would encourage realtors, keep taking phenomenal photography. Invest in the photography for right now, for sure. Yeah, and invest in video, because the appraiser is going to rely on that. To be able to go, okay, what's this house worth? What's this house appraised for?
It's super interesting, David, because people are going to be looking at how do I cut costs right now, right? I'm going to go with the cheap photographer. That might actually cause to where your property does not appraise. Who would have ever thought that, right? That your photography could actually influence appraisal.
Well, and I think it could, because when you're just relying on public data and you're just relying on pictures, because again, an appraiser goes in and goes, is it average? Is it above average? Below average? You look at a house that's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,700 square feet, and the appraiser doesn't know if there's granite countertops yet. He doesn't know if there's, hardwood floors or the quality of trim work. So I would even invest in taking pictures of the things that are going to set your property apart and really highlight the difference between your property and another property.
Interesting. Yeah.
And I would like zoom in on that crown molding. I would zoom in on the granite. And if there are certain high-end appliances or high-end, again, like the knobs and the fixtures and things like that, I would even put the brand names in the description, in the listing, as you're building out your listing, because those are the things that if the appraiser is doing a desktop appraisal, he's going to rely on, man, what's in that house? And again, to the degree that your house doesn't have those things, I would probably not focus, still take great pictures, make maybe the house look bigger than it is or better than it is. But, focus on and accentuate the positives, make your houses look as great as they can. And again, if they have high-end things in them, put it in the description.
All right, let's get into, so awesome, right? That's what you shared with us today about what's going well right now, and some great advice as well about appraisals. So let's talk a little bit about point number 2 is going to be telling what real estate agents should be telling buyers right now. Point number 3 is what you can be telling sellers right now. I know this is from your perspective. I'm sure there's all kinds of things that I would even encourage those that are chiming in. If you have other ideas that you are, as an agent, if you're listening to this and you have a recommendation, put it in the notes. Like, I think this is a fantastic place for people to go look to get this information. David's obviously going to be sharing from a lender perspective and what he's gleaned from his 15 years in the business, his great business sense, and even the realtors he's working with. But if you have things in here that's working, let's open source this. Let's share this. So I'd encourage everybody that's listening to be sure and put in that information so that we can all be helped. So David, tell us, what should we be telling buyers right now?
Well, and again, I love the feedback in the comments, and it's just my opinion. It's not Finance of America's opinion. And you're welcome to tell me I'm crazy. And first and foremost, like you indicated in the opening of the show, or even before, it's the number one thing, the paramount thing, is just being diligent, being vigilant, I guess, and being safe. Protect yourself. So what I would tell a buyer right now is rates they've come back down, they've settled. I think while we're looking here over these next few weeks for a home, rates are going to continue to settle because of what the Fed has done. now's a great time to look. And I'm going to tell you why now is a great time to look, because a lot of people are sitting on the sidelines. A lot of people have withdrawn. And so you have to keep in mind that if a seller is selling their home right now, okay, if they're willing to let someone come through and touch all the doorknobs, you know, and I'm not saying you should, I'm saying you should glove up, you should sanitize and like crazy. And I wouldn't go into somebody's home right now without having a glove on. But I'm saying the psychology, if somebody's willing to allow you to do that, they are not a casual seller. They're a very serious seller. They want to sell their home, because if they didn't need to, they'd pull it off the market right now and just sit tight and wait. So as a buyer, I think you have a unique opportunity to take advantage of this particular moment. And from a seller's perspective, I think you have a little bit of leverage. I think, you know what, because there's not as many buyers out there right now. There's not as many people willing to write offers. And so if a seller gets an offer, I think that you're in a position to ask for a greater discount or ask for a closing cost credit. I think sellers are also probably leery, and I don't think this is founded in any way, shape, or form. Well, I take that back. It may be a little bit founded, but I don't see a real estate crash coming like the 2008, 2009. I see maybe a slowing down, but the real estate market is not going to crater the way it did then, when it was the underlying fundamentals were related to failures in the real estate valuation piece and the lending piece of giving loans to anybody and everybody who can state their income and state their asset.
I agree.
It doesn't exist.
Yeah, fundamentally, we're actually strong and wise right now.
Yeah, and the economy it may take a while to rebound, but at the same time, the underlying fundamentals in the economy are strong as well. This is virus related, not, man, we got a real problem in our economy related, you know, so, but at the same time, that seller may fear that, okay, if I hold on to this house for another 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, man, it could go down. The economy could really crater. And I'm not saying it's going to, I'm just saying that psychologically, I think that's what a seller may be thinking. So I need to sell now. So even if you present them with a reasonable discount or a reasonable reduction in price, as a buyer, you're saying, hey, I know you've got it listed for 400. I'm going to give you 375, and I want you to pay my closing costs. I'm a big believer that you don't get what you don't ask for. So I think you just put that out there and allow the seller to say yes or no. But I think there are opportunities for buyers who are willing to, again, get out and look at some properties, and with interest rates where they are, I think it's a great opportunity.
Well, you brought up a good point prior, David, is that, you know, the greatest investor probably of all time, Warren Buffett, the reason and why he had been so successful is because he recognizes the herd mentality. He recognized that when there's fear in the market, everybody acts irrationally. Prices drop beyond what they should.
Yes.
He's able to step in and with a voice of reason and calm, be able to make wise decisions despite the turmoil. And I think that a buyer in this market that can come in and have that mentality of like, I'm not going to overpay for something, right? I'm not going to make I'm not going to panic and stay on the sideline, but I'm going to see that there's sellers right now that are going to buy into that the world is ending. I got to unload my property today, now.
Yeah.
And so I think, again, not taking advantage of people, but there's people that literally want out. And I think you being wise and aware and seeing that now can be a great time to buy, I think is awesome advice. So I appreciate what you shared there.
Well, I think, again, getting back to Warren Buffett, you know, he's rarely a seller. I mean, he is the definition of a long-term buy and hold investor. And he looks for opportunities to buy when others are selling. And I think if, as a buyer, you take that same tack, that same approach, and go, you know what? This is my opportunity. This is my time to dip my toe in the water and move forward right now when people are fearful. And again, you're still going to buy a home in the neighborhood that you want to live in, or in the school district that your kids want to go to school in, or things like that. But within that boundary of where you're going to buy a home, I just believe that there are opportunities if you're a buyer right now, because like you said, people behave irrationally. And I think you just don't know if, again, if the seller has their home on the market right now, they're a serious seller who wants to buy, just don't know who's going to make an irrational decision and sell their home for less money than they probably should.
Yeah.
So
Great advice. All right, let's talk about sellers right now, David.
yeah,
That's the kind of other side of the coin here. You're working with sellers.
yeah.
What can a real estate agent be telling a seller right now?
Well, kind of the exact opposite. So it feels like we're working two sides of the same coin or one side of two coins, because, on the one hand, I'm telling a buyer, hey, if you're willing, now's the time. There's fear in the marketplace. Go buy a home. Get out there. The flip side of that, if you're a listing agent, is tell your seller to just take a deep breath, calm themselves, and recognize that now is an excellent opportunity, because there's a lot of people who have pulled their home off the market because they don't want people walking through their house who could potentially be infected. They don't want people touching the doorknobs, walking through, things like that. They want to stay healthy. And in their mind, that's the way to do it. So we're not going to sell right now. It's like, okay. So, or you have the seller who is, I don't know, somewhere in between. But I think just tell the sellers to just, again, you know what, this is a great opportunity right now. And it's a great opportunity right now because there are less homes on the market. So we're not competing with, let's say you're normally competing with 50 homes in that school district price range, whatever. Now we might be competing with 20. So we have a great opportunity because, again, there are still way more buyers than there are sellers. And if we just took a chunk of those sellers out of the marketplace, that means we have access to more buyers. And if there's buyers in the marketplace right now, I'd say the same thing to the seller. There are buyers in the marketplace right now willing to go out and walk through homes. They are a serious buyer. They want to buy. Okay. So then it's just a function of getting your seller to go, you know what? We're not desperate. We don't need to sell. We'd like to sell. We want to sell, but it doesn't mean we're going to take any offer that comes through. You still want to make sure it's a good offer. It's not going to destroy the value in the neighborhood. You're not going to make all your neighbors angry because your house is worth 400 and you took 320. So it's about defending the value based on comps, based on recent sales, and understanding and reiterating to your seller as well as to the buyer's agent that, hey, you know what? This is a temporary blip. I mean, it's going to be maybe a month or 2 or 3 until we're back up on our feet and people are back to work. But this isn't the underlying challenges in the housing market that existed, in 08 and 09. We don't think we're going to see a deterioration of value. So we're willing to give a little bit of a discount. We're willing to come off that price a little bit, but we're not going to behave irrationally. So again, I feel like I'm sending competing messages. But again, it just depends on who you're representing and who your fiduciary responsibility is to.
That's right. I mean, I'm a big proponent, David, that sales is leadership, and like never before, that's coming. That's being put on display. Is that people are being led by their fears, by their anxieties, by what's happening in the news. And keep in mind, I shared this yesterday, that the news their job is to inform us. It's also a business. Their job is to take the most dramatic scenes in society and bring them to us so that we stay glued to their network so that they can sell advertising. Like, it's a very simple, business model. And we have to realize that most people are spending a lot of time right now on listening to the news and buying into that. And so as a result, you have people making decisions based on a very small sample in our society, as opposed to what's really happening in their specific marketplace. And so you being a real estate agent, how important is it, how important it becomes in order to have a situation where you're speaking calm and reason into the lives of both your buyers and your sellers, and helping them make grounded decisions based on real data, based on real rates, as opposed to what they're seeing on CNN or Fox News. Like it's an opportunity for you to lead and get your clients into a situation based on reality, as opposed to, what they're thinking or feeling, or worst case scenario that they're bringing into their life right now.
Yeah, and I think that that's just, I don't want to say it's sales 101 because I don't think everybody does it. It's not the thing that they teach you and, features, benefits, things like that. But I do think the role of a good mortgage lender as well, and as well as a realtor, is to sit down with your client and just say, well, what scares you about this? Or what are you most afraid of about buying a home? What are you most afraid of about selling your home? What keeps you up at night? And I think a lot of our job, and probably more so right now than in other times, is alleviating fear. It's addressing concerns. It's addressing real things, not glossing over it or pretending like they don't exist, and then providing a solution to it. And so if the solution is hand sanitizer and gloves and masks, and then that's the solution for right now.
Yeah.
And but that doesn't mean that business can't go on. It's going to go on, and it's going to go on a little bit differently. But how do we adapt? Because you know what, I just got transferred here. I still need to buy a home. Or hey, I got transferred. I got to sell my home. Or hey, our kids are going into high school next year, and we want to be in a different school district, and it's time to sell. I mean, so I think just addressing people's legitimate concerns and fears is just part of being a good salesperson, and making sure that you do all that you can to alleviate them.
And I love that, David, that you're right, that there's a lot of times if you can just get people to talk, to speak it out loud, like, tell me what you're
Yes.
afraid of, tell me what you're concerned about, they'll open up the closet door and realize that there's not really a monster in there. Yeah, there's some
Yeah.
things that you need to be worried about, right? There's some things that you need to be concerned about or navigate around, but it doesn't necessarily, again, once they verbalize it, they're going to realize that, okay, we can deal with this, right? This thing that's been causing me absolute paralysis,
Yeah.
I can deal with it. There's, like you said, there's ways around this. There's ways to work through this,
Yeah.
but oftentimes there's not if people don't vocalize it. And I love what you said is that as a leader, our job is to get people to talk, right? And to
Yeah.
listen and really, you know, help manage their real concerns versus ones that aren't real and shouldn't be a concern.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, I've got people who, have 700 plus credit scores, and they're putting down, more than enough money. They qualify fine. And if you ask them, well, hey, tell me what you're most scared about, or, what's your fear around this transaction, or they'll tell you, well, man, I really hope I can close. Like, I don't want to, like, and it's like, they should have zero fear. They should have zero, worries whatsoever. But again, people get into the middle of a real estate transaction, and it's emotional. I mean, it's very emotional, whether you're a seller or a buyer, and people have legitimate fears. And I think just addressing them, being open about it, not making a bigger deal of them than they need to be, but just saying, okay, well, this is an issue for you. Let me throw out an idea that might help deal with that. But if you have something better, or you think that there's a way that we could alleviate that or work around that, just let me know. We'll incorporate that, and we'll do that so that, you make sure that, or we make sure that your needs are being met.
Yeah.
And I think when you do it in a really calm, relational way, so that people feel heard and people feel like, oh yeah, this guy's cool, or this woman's cool. Like, she heard me and she didn't ignore me. She's actually, doing the things that I asked in order to make me feel comfortable. Then, I think it gives people the courage, or the confidence is a better word, but the confidence to move forward.
Yeah. I agree. And I think just you being calm as a real estate agent is probably the most important thing, is for you to, in a calm voice, have that conversation with people. David, this has been amazing, my friend. Even better than I expected. Not to say that I wasn't expecting it to be great, but you've really added much more value than even what we'd promised.
Thanks for lowering the bar, my friend.
That's not what I meant. We just went into more topics than I expected. So let's discuss this final question, David, which is, you're a big thinker. What does a guy like you do to continue to be a big thinker, to continue to expand your own possibilities? Teach us.
I don't know. It's interesting. I've been pretty upfront with you about my depression, and with things that I really struggled with for a long time. And I turned the corner, I don't know, on my depression probably about 3 years ago. And we're talking depression where it's suicidal type depression. And a lot of that was just it's genetics, it's biochemistry from my dad, who was bipolar and manic, um, and some of it's situational. You make bad choices in life, and went through a divorce a few years ago that really crushed me. And but at the same time, I made a decision and to kind of stay crushed for a whole lot longer than I probably should have stayed crushed. And you start to see yourself in a certain way. And this year, my production has ramped up and just crushed 2017, crushed 2018, on pace for my probably maybe one of my best years ever. And I and my boss asked me a couple weeks ago. He said, "Hey, David, what's changed? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? Are you doing?" And I said, "You know what, Joe? Not really." I said, "Honestly," I said, "it's just about mindset." And I said, "I just woke up um, late last year and decided, you know what? I'm tired of being crushed. I'm tired of like living in a space, not depressed anymore, but living in a space where maybe I viewed myself as less than, or I wasn't deserving of X." And we've talked about 10X, Grant Cardone, and I read that book last year, and I continue to reread it to just go, okay, where do I have to set my goals to push myself further and further out of my comfort zone? How many calls do I need to make? How many prospects do I need to talk to? What do I need to do in order to change and shift my mindset? So might be more than you bargained for in that answer, but it's just, again, I think mindset is so critical. Really examining how you see yourself, how you view yourself, what you believe about yourself, and then asking yourself, is any of this true, or it's just what I've chosen to believe, but none of it's really true, and then just choosing to have a different belief system. So for me, I mean, that's what I would
Yeah,
offer up
yeah.
today, man.
David, I appreciate you sharing that. What an authentic and even vulnerable thing you just did there. And I think it gives hope to a lot of people, because people look at you and be like, man, that guy has it figured out. Like, he's dialed, he's confident, he's smart. And I would even say he's got some Sean Connery looks to him. And
Whatever.
but to say, like, look, I've struggled with depression in a deep way, and here's how I've come out of it. I think it endears a lot of people to you, and you're going to inspire a lot of people by doing that. So I want to thank you for that. And I agree. I mean, that's again kind of the purpose behind this, is that it all begins with what's going on in our own heads, and that then transpires into the world in which we live. And so, 100% agree with you. I want to thank you for everything that you've contributed today to help us think bigger and to help us really see what we should be saying, how we should be seeing the marketplace, both the opportunities, things we should be telling buyers and sellers. It's been truly awesome. I knew that it would be. Let me just emphasize that point. I knew that it would be awesome.
I know.
And I want to just remind everybody this charge, that now more than ever, you are needed to lead. You are needed to step up. And we need you to do these 3 simple words to live them. And they are to go think bigger. Thank you so much, David. I appreciate you helping us think bigger than COVID-19, helping us to see beyond the challenges we're currently in, and create the world today that's possible for us. So appreciate you very much, my friend.
You as well, my friend. Take care.
You bet.